Hey y'all, it's Kate from the Literary Apothecary, and today we're going to do our weekly wrap-up for February 7th to 13th. These are some of the books that we're going to be talking about today. This is going to be a long one. I've got a lot to check in on, so just bear with me, people. So, since our last check-in, I finished 3 books. This is where I start talking spoilers, so if you haven't read these books and you don't want spoilers, then thank you for watching, and check my spoiler-free reviews that are either up now or will be going up soon. So last weekend I finished The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan, and I give this book 3.5 out of 5 stars. As you remember, this was a buddy read back on Shelf Space back in December, and I finally finished it. And so at the end, we get Rand defeats the Dark One, and now he's off on another mission, which leads us into book 2, The Great Hunt, which I think I'll be starting in March sometime. So Rand can't go back home anymore because everyone else is in danger because of his new powers, and that's where we left with The Eye of the World. And I have a spoiler-free review posted, so I will link that here in the description. Next, I finished Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. I gave this book 5 stars. This is a buddy read on Gregory/Benedict Laperge's Discord back in January, and I finally finished it, and I absolutely loved this book so much. I love this one more than I loved Mistborn series, even though I haven't finished that series yet. I just loved Spencer and Embot and the whole crew. So there's a lot to check in on this because I just powered through this book this week. So Ned has dropped out after his brothers were killed in action. Hurl was killed in another Krell attack. Quirk then dropped out. I got a quote from page 356 in my edition that says, "It must be nice to have free will," and that's Embot talking to Spencer in their conversation about free will. Spencer learns the truth about what happened to her father. He went up to the stars and came back and shot at his own flight team. Arturo's parents took him out of the school, so that only leaves Spencer, Jerkface, and FM left in their flight. Embot turns himself off for fear that Spencer will make him go into battle, which goes against his pilot's orders. Then Spencer talks to her family about her father, and she learns that her family can hear the stars. And this has been kind of like their destiny, what's special about her family compared to everyone else's family. Spencer gets shot down in another Krell attack and is kicked out of school either because she was shot down or because she ejected so she didn't die. It's a little unclear. The myth was that if you eject, then you're kicked out, but the Ironside said because she got shot down before she graduated, she was getting kicked out. So it's a little unclear the exact reason why, but now she's out of school. And then we have this crazy Sanderson typical ending. We get another Krell attack, and Spencer and the dropouts come back to fight when all hope feels lost. Cobb flies Embot in to save Spencer because she goes and flies Arturo's broken down ship, and she lands it, but it's unusable. So Cobb comes in with Embot to save the day. Since Spencer flies Embot in battle, but she doesn't have any guns, so all she's able to do is kind of distract them and lure them away so her other flight members can come in and shoot them down. Then she flies to the stars just like her father did and gets the real truth. And she learns that she thinks the Krell are able to kind of talk into her head, and that's why she could hear them this whole time and anticipate what they're going to be doing. And she also learns that she thinks they can implant different images and thoughts into her heads, and she thinks this is what happened to her father, that they implanted this thought into his head that his whole team and all of his people were dead, and that the people that he's shooting on, his team, are actually Krell, he believes, and that's why he shot at them. And so Spencer learned that also that the Krell have been basically keeping Spencer's people like a zoo, that the universe has grounded them. They feared that they would try to take over the entire universe, so they all the other planets and species have decided that they are going to just keep them at bay as long as they can. And that's what the Krell have been doing. That's why the Krell haven't been trying to completely destroy Spencer's planet. They've just been keeping them at bay. So she brings this information back to Ironsides, and we have a great ending at that. And I'm really excited to move on to book 2 of the Skyward series, which I'll probably again start in March. But this is the first time, like when I was reading the Mistborn series, I was enjoying it. I was really enjoying it. But after I finished book 1, spoiler for anyone who hasn't read Mistborn yet, when I finished book 1, I was like, okay, Kelsier's dead. Now what else is gonna happen? So I went into book 2 because I wanted to see what was gonna happen next. Well of Ascension, I wanted to know where the story went from there, but I wasn't really excited like other people said they would be. And when I finished Well of Ascension, I felt the same. I felt kind of let down by Well of Ascension, and so I've kind of unintentionally been putting off reading Hero of Ages to finish that series because I was let down, and I didn't really feel like a series needed to be had out of that. But I will be hopefully reading Hero of Ages sometime in February, so more on that to come. But back to Skyward, I'm actually really excited to move on to book 2. I believe it's called like Sightward or something like that. I forget the name of it, but I'm really excited to move on to book 2. I loved Skyward and all of the characters, so I can't wait to see what happens to that. Again, 5 stars on Skyward. Enough on that. So lastly, I finished an audiobook called Let There Be Love. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars, and I'm going to have a whole dedicated vlog to this. This is part of a collaboration I'm doing now, pushed back to March. We each have a different transportation method, and I've chosen sled dogs, and I'm so excited for this collab because it's so exciting. I loved sled dogs ever since I was little. I loved learning about the Iditarod and sled dogs, so I can't wait for that collab. So there will be more on Let There Be Love in March. Now on to the books that I'm currently reading. So I started reading Midnight at the Blackbird Cafe by Heather Weber, and this is a book club book for me for my book club at work. In this book, we get Anna Kate and Nicole, who are essentially on 2 sides of one legend. So Anna Kate's the new person in town, and like her family's been like this mysterious family. No one really knows what's going on. Her grandma owned the Blackbird Cafe and has been like a family run business. And there's this myth about the blackbird pie, which is really just a normal fruit pie. But the myth says that anyone who eats a piece of the blackbird pie gets a message at night from a lost loved one in their dreams that's then brought in by the blackbirds that come to this one particular bush outside the cafe only between the hours of 12 midnight and 1 a.m. So that's really intriguing to me. This book is kind of feeling kind of like, not a lot's happening, but it's an intriguing idea, so I'm going to keep reading. One quote that I loved coming from this was, "Soggy bottoms are always unfortunate." And of course in here they're talking about the pie, but you know that's a life saying. I love it. It made me chuckle. So I'm enjoying Midnight at the Blackbird Cafe. I'm not going to say it's one of my favorites, and I definitely wouldn't have picked it up if it wasn't a book club pick, but I do love the cover. It's such a beautiful cover. So more on that later. And then last night I started From Blood and Ash by Jennifer Armentrout, and this is a book that a whole bunch of my Discord friends, Ani and Abby and Katrina and Angela and Sharon and Charmaine, and Meredith, we've all either read this or currently reading this or will be reading this. And Ani sent this to me at Christmas time. She's so grateful. This is one of her absolute favorite books, and I just started last night and I'm already hooked into it. So we get Poppy, our protagonist, who is the maiden in this story, and this is on like this different world, fantasy, romance. And so Poppy is getting ready to take place in this ceremony called the Ascension, where they are basically given over to the gods, and no one really knows what happens in the Ascension, but her brother has gone through it and it supposedly is fine and sends her letters back. He got married too. So it's a little, it's one of those books that you just have to read to be able to really understand what's going on. But I'm loving it, and I've gotten one quote so far that I've been able to pull out from it. Physical pain was almost always hot, but the kind that couldn't be seen, it was almost always cold. And this is from Poppy, and she's able to kind of look into people and see the pain that they're experiencing and that they're going through, and that idea just is really, really intriguing to me. So I can't wait to keep reading From Blood and Ash and be able to join my friends in the chat that they have about this finally. And then the last book that I'm reading right now is still, yes, The Brothers Karamazov. Yes, this is a big giant book, and as you remember, I'm reading this as part of a buddy read. That's a 2-month-long buddy read with the Codex Cantina and Christy Dostoevsky, Lost in Space, and the musical Bookworm, and the History Shelf, I believe it is. And I will link that Discord in the description. We've got a whole Discord going on about it. I'm way behind everyone else, but I'm still really enjoying this. I'm enjoying this book more than I enjoyed Crime and Punishment by the same author. I love the humor that's brought into it. So since my check-in last, we've met the third brother now, Alyosha, who wants to be a monk. In book 1, chapter 5, I get this quote: "Someone who takes your soul and your will into his soul and will," and this is talking about the elders. And then in book 2, chapter 1, I have, quote, "There was something about his eyes that was reminiscent of a lobster," and that just made me laugh because that's part of that humor that we get in The Brothers Karamazov. And then book 2, chapter 2, "The one who lies to himself and believes his own lies comes to a point where he can distinguish no truth within himself or around him, and thus enters into a state of disrespect towards himself and others." And that was just one of those beautiful Dostoevsky quotes that just makes you think. In book 3, chapter 3, we learn about this boy that died, and he, in the footnote, I learned he is the same age and has the same name as Dostoevsky's son when his son died. And so I really love those little tidbits that we get in the footnotes. And then the last note I have about this book is I just loved the elders interacting with these women that come to see him and to heal, and seeing his interaction with these women and the trust that they have in him and the amount of emotion that he pours into them is just so heartwarming and a nice kind of palate cleanser and change among all the humor that we get in this book. So that's my check-ins on my currently readings. Now, when I'm done reading From Blood and Ash, which you can see is a big giant book, so it'll be a while, I will be starting in on Jade City by Fonda Lee, which is a buddy read on shelf space that I'm supposed to be leading this month, so I'm hoping to get to this very, very soon, but this will be my next read after From Blood and Ash. And when I'm done reading Midnight at the Blackbird Cafe, I'll be moving on to my next Terry Pratchett book, Feet of Clay, which will be a very nice change in all of this somber tone, because as you know, Terry Pratchett is hilarious. I love his writing, and I can't wait to move on to the next City Watch book. So that's my check-in for now. I know there was a lot, but there was a lot to check in on. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. If you've read any of these books I've talked about, let me know what you thought, who your favorite characters were, what you liked, what you didn't like, any of your thoughts about these books. I can't wait to get back to my reading. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you get notifications every time we put new videos up. And keep reading, and I love you all to the moon and back. Bye.